Hello, I've been having some fun creating auto-narrated audiobooks using Google's technology. And I thought, as I create my fourth one, that it might be interesting to other authors to see how it's done and what sort of results you can get. So let's have a go. This is my current Google, so you have to be in Google Play. That's the first thing. Let's talk about the requirements as a first step. You would need any ebook that you want to convert to an auto-narrated book needs to be wide. Google's quite happy for you to distribute the produced audio files on other platforms. Audible, as I understand it, is the only one of the major audiobook platforms that doesn't allow for auto-narrated books or digitally narrated or AI narrated. But you could, and I do, use the generated audiobooks on Kobo books and also to sell direct yourself, which I'm also doing. The only significant requirement that I know of that Google talks about is that in order to use the audiobook files, you must have those files available on Google Play Books. So this isn't something that KU authors can do. So that's an advantage of going wide. I therefore can't do it on all my ebooks, but I can do it on some of my backlists that I've currently got wide. So here we can see these are my wide books, two main series, and I'm looking at my Robot Empire series. I've created audiobook versions of 3 of them so far. Well, there's the first. That one is free, and these 2 are low price. I basically price them at roughly the same price as the ebook. But I'm now going to work on the 4th one in the series, which is called Sledgehammer. So what we do to begin with is we need to go to the ebook section in Google Play. Go into Book Info. Right, if we go into Content, it says Create Auto-Narrated Audiobook. And so that's what you need to click. And then we select, yes, that's what we want to do. That's the name of the book. Now for book ID, if you have an ISBN, go ahead. But I just use get a Google book ID and allow Google to assign me one. And then click Save and Continue. And wait. And after a couple of minutes, Google will present you with this view. We're now in the audiobook. This is now, just to show you, if I go back to my books catalogue, we'll see that I've got a new greyed out version, which is the audiobook. So we need to go back in there. It's entirely separate to the ebook at this point. So if we click on audiobook text, if we make changes in this will not be reflected in the ebook, and that's quite important for some changes you will want to make to your ebook. Google has already decided it doesn't think that my readers will want any of these pages, but Google is wrong about that. I would like the title page to be read out. So I click on there to include the section. And because it's being read out, we need to think about exactly how this is going to be read out by the narrator. I don't want the publisher. So what I want is to say those words. I don't personally bother with the copyright statement. Obviously we don't want that. The dedication I've included on 2 of the previous books, so I'm not going to put it here. And then this is the opening chapter. And you can see that it's brought everything in nicely. So the first thing you're going to want to do is choose your narrator. Now I've chosen Mike. I'm not entirely sure how well this is going to come out on the video, but if we listen, if I click play, see, here's the list of voices. Well, here's the voice that I've selected. I've selected Mike. If I click play, turn my speaker on.
Bit by bit, she became accustomed to the peculiar sense of being in one place and many at the same time. Her gaze swept across the desert and then through the skin of the intruder and out into space. No, it was not the intruder, it was Orbis. The world.
How cool is that? The quality of the AI voice is astonishingly good. I've experimented with AI voices for some time, and on my website I've got quite a few samples read by an Amazon generated AI voice similar to the Alexa technology, but this is different class. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that I have listened to audiobooks narrated by humans that are more robotic than the delivery here. Obviously it can't do a performance, but it does a remarkably good job, and it's much better than not having a narration at all. If you're someone that likes audiobooks or likes reading but maybe commutes a lot, or like I do, walks the dogs a lot, then this is ideal just to stick on and listen. But so that was Mike, and who was an American male voice. Now this is a novel aimed at the American audience, so I will be picking an American. But as you can see, we've got quite a big. There's a bit of me that wants to listen to the Australian male. Shall we listen to the Australian male? The very fast-paced, very high-pitch Australian male, really. Hold on.
Dorothy lived in the midst of the great Kansas prairies with Uncle Henry and Aunt Em. Their house was small for the lump.
Let's listen to Cole.
Dorothy lived in the midst of the great Kansas prairies with Uncle Henry and Aunt Em. Their house was small, for the lumber to build it.
A very gentle Australian accent, I must say. And then, as you can see them all here. They're basically, are they in alphabetical order? But the American ones come first. We even have Spanish male.
Iba Sancho Panza sobre su jumento como.
Just amazing, isn't it? How cool. It's just so cool. We're trying an Indian male.
Dorothy lived in the midst of the great Kansas prairies with Uncle Henry.
That is amazing. That's so good. For the American ones, I wanted medium speed. I don't want it to be too fast. So let's listen to a little bit of high-pitched or young American male.
Dorothy lived in the midst of the great Kansas prairies with Uncle Henry and Aunt Em.
So good. I could have gone with that one actually, but I've settled for Mike. And so everything will be rendered in Mike's voice. Now the process that I go through is that rather than sit here and listen to it in the preview mode, what I do is I publish the book knowing that no one's going to buy it unless I promote it. And then I listen to it through Google Play Books on my phone as I'm walking the dogs. And I keep notes in Google Keep. So you can see them here. I make a note and then I'll go through. All I'm recording here is the chapter, and then I go through and make the edits. So as an example, through all of the books, the first 3 books all include EVA, extravehicular activity, an acronym. Because I don't use full stops between EVA, Mike pronounces it as Eva. So what I need to do is I need to search through the document for any instances of EVA, and then just put the full stops in, and then Mike will pronounce it correctly. Oh, let's listen to it both ways.
It will require an EVA since my repair...
So if I change it to EVA,
It will require an EVA since my repair...
So that's sorted. Now I think that was the only one in this book that had EVA in it. So that's cool. There's a Chinese character whose name is spelled XI, which I believe the Chinese pronounce she, but that got really quite confusing when he was chatting to a female, because both words sounded like she. So what I did was in the previous book I searched for, it may not be in this book actually, he is. So this needs to be pronounced, I went for Z. I decided it would be Z. because it's the future and I can do what I like, frankly. So in order to do that, what we do is we, and this is any word, you can right click on the word and edit pronunciation. And you can see that, that's the dog.
She.
It comes out too close to C or she. But if I change it to Z, there we go, and that's what I want. And now I can apply it to all occurrences of that in the entire book. I know that I also need to look for Z's, because just in case there are any, because it won't catch that. Google will now indicate all places where it's changed the pronunciation by underlining it, and you can just click on it, right click, and play that word.
She.
That's wrong, isn't it? Tell you what.
Z.
There we go. Well, let's listen, because now I'm beginning to doubt myself. We're going to play this paragraph.
Luckily, Prime Z had demonstrated.
So that's fine. Okay. And that process is what I will do throughout this book. As I said, what I would do to begin with, I would correct those things that I think are in my notes are likely to be universal, but then I'll just publish it, and then I'll listen to that and then go back through and make the corrections that are needed to be made. So you just, once you've made some changes, you click on save and then create audiobook. Okay, as I said, I price these similar to the cost of the original ebook. So Google's got really good, very granular pricing. So I'm going to add a US dollar price for the US market, which is $3.99. And in fact, I'm going to set that for world. I could go through and make, as I said, more granular changes, but at the moment I just want to set things up. And of course, the thing that I have not yet done is uploaded the cover. So that's done in content. Basically what I've done is because I designed these covers, I've got the original Photoshop files and I've converted them to square 2400 pixel format. And I'll show you in a minute. I've also added a sort of badge on the front that indicates it's what I would call digitally narrated. I think it was Joanna Penn that came up with that term. Okay, so if I click on Browse and go to Book 4, and my cover is somewhere here. There it is. If we look at the file, you can see that I've added digital audiobook as a sort of flag that it's not human narrated. So that's done. It may not show the cover until it's processed the audio file. Okay, so that's, if we now go back to look at one that I'd done already, look at Planet of Steel, you can see that it shows the full content. At that point, once it's done that, you can download it. And that it downloads as a series of zip file with a series of MP3s properly structured. And you can upload those direct to BookFunnel and I've done it with Kobo Writing Live, as I said. Obviously, it's already on Google. And I've used PayHip to allow people to pay for it. And the other thing you can do is you can add content reviewer email addresses down here. And that's one way of getting it onto your own Google library. So you would put your email address in there and then it would appear automatically in your Google Play Books library in the app, in the Google app. So you can then listen to it and make your notes. Okay, I've whittled on for long enough. I hope that's given you a decent overview of the process. It is really, really good. I'm very pleased with it. It's not as good as a human narrator, and obviously, well, it's not as good as a good human narrator, but for books that weren't going to get a narration, it's absolutely ideal. And Google's mission is to get as many books converted into a format that can be listened to as possible. If I wanted people to be able to pick a voice, say they prefer to listen to a female voice, I could create a version of this, changing the voice to a female voice, allowing Google to process it, downloading that audiobook, putting it onto BookFunnel, and then offering people both, and then perhaps going back to Google and changing back to Mike, because Mike's the guy for me. Okay, that's it. I hope you found that useful, and maybe I'll see you next time.